We are continuing to follow a train derailment in Vermont. We're getting some new images into our newsroom. This Amtrak train, called the Vermonter, reportedly hit some rocks that were on the tracks. There are at least 4 injuries at this time, but none is believed to be life-threatening.
Let's get straight to our Kris Van Cleave, who's following the story. Kris, what do you know so far? What's the latest?
Well, it looks like the initial reports are that this train hit some rocks on the track. Certainly investigators will want to know how that happened. The images we've seen are that some cars clearly did derail and leave the track. What's remarkable here is we're hearing about only a few injuries so far, no reports anyway of life-threatening injuries. Amtrak, as well as the Federal Rail Administration, have crews and investigators on their way to the scene. The Vermonter runs from Vermont through New York City and ends in Washington, D.C. It is a daily service from Amtrak. A fairly well-known line. Certainly it's one that's popular in the fall as leaves start to change up in Vermont and New Hampshire, up that way. And at this point, it's very early in this investigation. We know this from Amtrak, that from the Amtrak crash in Philly, that information will come slowly here for a bit until the investigators are on scene and they're really able to take stock. The other thing, because trains work a little differently than how planes work, we don't have necessarily a firm head count right away the way we would if this was an airliner we were talking about. So we know there are roughly 95, 96 people on board, they think, but because people can get on and off a train, the head counts can vary a little bit. So you're going to hear those numbers likely change a little bit here and there as well, which adds to some confusion as you're first responding to these things. But, what we're hearing is just a handful of injuries on what could have been a very, very serious accident.
Kris, do we know yet how it is that Amtrak will help those folks who were on this train, who weren't injured enough to go to the hospital, to help get them on their way or reunited with their families? Because as I recall, during the Philly train crash, there were some stories of folks who were not able to get onto to meet their loved ones and concerns by those loved ones about where they were. Do we know anything at all about how Amtrak is going to be assisting those passengers?
Well, typically the folks that want to continue on, they're going to have to run basically a bus bridge down to another Amtrak station where a train can resume service. Obviously, from points above on, that section of track is essentially going to be out of service for a while this investigation is going on. So the people who weren't hurt and want to continue on, it's just a matter of getting them to another station where there can be a train that they can continue their journey. As far as reuniting people, certainly Amtrak did after-action reports. They looked at what went well and what didn't, as far as how they responded to the derailment in Philadelphia in May, and likely are implementing some of those lessons learned, so to speak, in how they respond to this one. Pretty much everyone has a cell phone now, and this is sounding, at least initially, and certainly that could change, that you're not dealing with the same level of catastrophic accident like you had with Train 188 here. So there may not be the same level of just chaos and confusion that we saw in Philadelphia just a few months ago. But certainly here and now, this is another major derailment for Amtrak in just the span of a few months. That is going to certainly be something that investigators will want to look at. But, if there had been some collection of rocks on the tracks, it's very challenging for the train operator to avoid that. If the engineer couldn't see it well in advance, trains don't stop all that quickly, and it's not like a train can swerve out of the way. You're locked into that track, so if there was a big enough pile of debris to derail the train, but not so big that he or she saw it a half mile in advance, that train may not have been able to stop.
All right, Kris Van Cleave, thank you very much.